Good evening and welcome. I'm Sheila Balgobin and I am the Dream Decipherer, and I help you to crack the code of your sleep and dreams so you can sleep sound and dream deep. This evening I have two dreams, one a bit involved and the other one quite short. But they should be interesting. They feature artificial intelligence, mutants, and a chastity belt. So we'll dive right in to the first dream, which the dreamer describes as being a very long and intense dream. Now, there's something to that with regard to dreams. They may feel like they go on for hours, but they only last minutes. Our sense of subjective time shifts when we're dreaming. But in any case, the dreamer perceived that the dream felt like it was long, and it was an intense dream, which he actually didn't recall much of. And as I've said at other times, that the emotional charge, the parts of the dream with the most emotional charge or energy behind it is what you will remember. The other stuff has a tendency to fall away, but the most important stuff is what you will remember. So what the dreamer says, what he did recall of his dream was that he was involved in a project that was based in a building. Wasn't sure of the exact location, um, where there were a project was going on that was involved magic science, artificial intelligence, and perhaps some physical movements such as meditate, physical move, sorry, physical movement or meditation or some other activity. Interestingly enough, there was also interest expressed by the government, which government doesn't specify, and the underworld. In other words, organized crime in some form or shape. The dreamer then reports that at some point in the dream, someone either intentionally or accidentally um, were in. Let me start again. There was a point in the dream where someone either intentionally or accidentally sprayed or infected some certain people with a material that caused them to mutate in some form or fashion. And one machine that was connected to the building itself actually became sentient, one can assume, as a result of this material that was spread around it through the air. The project was eventually shut down and the building was left vacant for a number of years. However, it was taken over, and it may have been illegally, as as these things happen, by a group of young people who used it for community arts projects, such as dance and music. It became a cultural hub, and apparently was decorated with brightly colored graffiti. It also, the dreamer reports, became clear that artificial intelligence was also involved in this community hub. Some of the children that had been infected by this material as children during when the project was running as an experiment years ago had undergone some kind of mutation and had become were now young adults, but somehow they were connected in some way, perhaps, with this artificial intelligence of the building. So there ends the first dream. I told you there was a lot of stuff in there, but we'll unpick it and see what's going on afterwards. The second dream, very short, one line. And the dreamer reports that the dreamer was naked and an unknown woman had attached a lock and chain to his groin. In other words, a chastity belt. And that's the end of that dream. So the first dream, there's quite a lot of elements to it. The second dream is stripped down, literally, to the bare essentials. But we'll see what connection, if any, there is between the two dreams. The first dream, there's a lot to unpick here, but we'll look at some of the major points. The first being artificial intelligence. The project, there was a research project of some kind going on, which also had caught the attention of government, whatever government that may be, it's not specified, and the underworld or organized crime. Now, this artificial intelligence project, what exactly does that mean for the dreamer? What, I mean, did he have a view, either negative or positive, of artificial intelligence and its use? But there could also be other meanings for what artificial intelligence could possibly stand for. Perhaps a kind of mechanical, robotic life, not a real life, but one that's just lived by rote without thinking very much. Um, Magic science. Now, some people may think of artificial intelligence as being some kind of magic science of some kind, or advanced science anyway. But what does this mean for the dreamer? What is magic science versus real science? Now, funnily enough, this was a bit of a throwback for me. So I'm starting to show my age here, but back in during the presidency of Ronald Reagan, there was something that was this really crazy stuff that was going on with the economy, to the point where they were calling what the economic plans voodoo economics, and this kind of reminded me of that. Something, real science versus magic science. Things are just going to magic themselves into existence, I suppose. Now, is again, I would ask, what does the dreamer think that this artificial intelligence, for what it's worth, is it a negative thing or a positive thing? Or perhaps artificial intelligence is maybe a pretense at intelligence. You could look at it that way. And it made me wonder if there's some elements of what's going on currently at the moment with children, and going to school and having to rely on artificial intelligence, in that they're learning online. Now, there's a hint that there may be this artificial intelligence is it sparked the interest of governments and organized crime, for the simple reason that this information or these beings can be put to use for some darker purpose. What that purpose is not specified, but there seems to be an implication that there's something negative with regard to this research, or to artificial intelligence itself. So again, it comes back to the question of, what does the dreamer actually think about artificial intelligence? Now, during this research project that was going on in this building, some individuals, whether that was voluntarily or not, began to mutate because of some substance that they were ingested or were covered with, or it's not clear as to how this material got on them or in them or to them. But nevertheless, they were impacted by some kind of mutation going on. What they mutated into is not clear either. Though, interestingly enough, one of the mutants actually, one of the mutations that occurred was that one machine actually connected to the building that the research was going on and became sentient. The building itself became sentient, like a smart building, I guess you could say. And I wonder what that means for the dreamer. I mean, it interestingly enough, for me, it implied bugging, like bugging buildings. I mean, some years ago, there was a big hoo-ha about the U.S. Embassy being in Moscow being bugged to the hilt by the Russians. So I mean, there's it seems to be some kind of implication that a sentient building, a building that where the walls literally have ears, could imply, again, going back to this underworld connection of secret doings or hidden things. But eventually, the building is repurposed after this project ends, and a number of years, several years go by, into a community hub where arts, dance, and culture are being uh, practiced or going on, events going on, probably by young people occupying the building illegally. Now, there some of the young people that had become mutated when there was a research project going on were also at this community hub and seemed to be plugged in some kind of way to the building itself, which had, as we know, has become sentient. Now, I just wonder again if there's shades of the current concerns parents may have about their children's education, particularly as a lot of it is going on online at the moment for obvious reasons. And there's a bit of wrangling back and forth as to whether students should actually physically be in a building at school or not. So I would ask the dreamer at this point is whether if that's something in waking life that's an actual concern for children, his children, that there's this electronic, robotic of passing on of information, of educating children, is something that he may or may not feel good about or has opinions about. And I wonder if this dream is kind of touching on that. Now, let's see. Well, with regard to the theme of parents and their concerns about their children's education at the moment, I wonder if this is expressing concerns about not only about education, but about government action or inaction, as well as illegal or immoral use of information, whether that be, kids not getting their school grades, their exam grades properly because of whatever. There's a lot of that going on at the moment, and I think this may be reflected in the dream. Our dreams are not dreamt in isolation. They come from, yes, they come from us and from within us, but they also incorporate the environment around us. So if you're a parent and you're concerned about your children, it's quite possible that that will turn up in some form or other in a dream. But we're going to leave the first dream for a moment and go on to dream two, which, like I said, was in comparison to the first dream, was extremely short. It was literally one line. And it's about an unknown woman who has locked the dreamer, who's naked, in a chastity belt. Now, who is this unknown woman? Is it this? Obviously, the dreamer doesn't know consciously or in waking life who this person is, but I wonder if, on a more psychological level or emotional level, if this is the anima or inner female that every male has, just as every female has an inner male or animus. Now, it's interesting because the anima for men is the part of themselves that allows for connection, to express emotion and relationship. So I wonder that if this figure is actually the anima, why is she binding the dreamer? And that's something perhaps for the dreamer to think about. I mean, the dreamer in the dream is naked, but I mean, yes, you could look at it as physically naked, but think of it if you look at it from the point of view of emotions, to be emotionally naked is to be authentic, to be oneself, to be honest in how we present ourselves. So perhaps there's something in this dream that is indicating perhaps an area of the dreamer's life where he is not being completely naked or authentic. There's still some part of him that's covered up, so to speak, and being repressed or held back or hidden from view in some way. So I would ask that the dreamer perhaps look at that as there's some what area of their lives they're not being completely authentic in and of themselves. I was also reminded that the in the biblical story in the Garden of Eden, Adam and Eve didn't know they were naked until they acquired knowledge. Once they acquired knowledge and understood, after that apple business, that they understood that they were naked, then they started to hide themselves and use fig leaves or whatever the case may be to cover themselves up because they became ashamed. And I wonder if there's something of that too, some knowledge of some kind or other, perhaps making the dreamer feel that it needs to be covered up or shielded or protected in some way. Not necessarily with regard to sex, but in some aspect of their life that's not being exposed to the light of day or being held in check in some way. I mean, you look at a chastity belt, what does that imply? Control, literally having someone control your desire. So by force rather than by choice or individual effort. The clothes could, the implication of not being clothed, of being naked, is that clothes like are our physical masks, just like we wear our different masks in different social situations. We have our game face, we have our work face, we have our hanging out with our friends face. So we wear this different mask depending on what is going on at the particular time. Clothes can also serve as a mask, not just to cover our bodies, but to express something about ourselves, and not having those masks being stripped back or stripped away implies that the person is perhaps being more authentic, actually, in and of themselves, being more honest. Yet there's still a bit of control, a bit of censoring going on. Now, the other thing that occurred to me with this was that this chain and lock around the dreamer also reminded me of like that cartoon cliche of prisoners. They're dressed in black and white stripes, and they've got this chain with a heavy lead ball attached to it to keep them from moving around. And that analogy has been used to refer to various things, including work and marriage. So the ball and chain, people, pejoratively talking about their spouse that way or their partner. But the implication there is that someone is being fettered or being burdened or bound in some way. And I wonder if that's a feeling that is occurring or has occurred at some point in waking life for the dreamer. Now, to look at what possible points of commonality between these two dreams, you have the highly technical world of Dream One with artificial intelligence and sentient buildings, smart buildings, versus the second dream, which was literally stripped down, as opposed and just the basic person, as opposed to all of this artificial intelligence, all of this magic science, all of this electronic stuff that nefarious possibly elements might want to get their hands on. So there's something about false views, false technology versus reality. And being that we live in the world of fake news par excellence these days, I wonder if there's something about that that the dreamer had was picking up on and expressing in the dream. Now, again, there's also, in terms of current events, there's the both dreams seem to be expressing concerns um, about relationships, about people, about changes and mutations, and mutating buildings, mutating children, um, perhaps, and even a mutated adult in the second dream, because there's a change, perhaps for the dreamer in terms of consciousness, a shift in consciousness. So that there's quite a contrast, like I said, of stuff, a lot of stuff going on in the first dream, and barely, literally, anything in the second dream. And there's something about that, I think, that the contrast between all of this excess and scientific and technical stuff in the one dream, and this very simple, very basic, um, stripped away of all pretense, of the second dream. So there's something about falseness and veracity, or I mean, or some kind of dichotomy between things that are genuine, in their in and of themselves and in the way they operate, and things that aren't genuine, that aren't true, um, that have something false about them. And I just wonder for the dreamer where that may fit in what's going on in their life, in waking life, in terms of how they feel that the world is at the moment, or their world is at this moment. That there's a lot of misinformation out there. We know, particularly with regard to uh, this virus, particularly with regard to whether we should be sending our children back to school or not. So, and the experts, so-called experts, some of them who are genuine experts, and others who think they're experts and spouting all kinds of craziness that people are following and coming a cropper as a result. So there's a lot in both dreams, actually, even though the second dream had, like I said, was only one line long. There's a lot of things in there for the dreamer to perhaps to consider, and what his position is in relationship to these dreams. So there you have it. Crazy dreams, lovely dreams, and linking all kinds of current concerns these days, from education to government activity to illegal activity, as well on the part of the kids. That was another thing, that possibly illegal activity with this research project on artificial intelligence, and this very same building being occupied by young people, perhaps illegally squatting, who knows. Thank you so much for watching and listening. Have a wonderful evening and rest of the week, and I'll see you again soon. Take care. Bye bye.